First of all, thank you very much on for having me on this show. Thank you, Strat-Board. Okay, so going back to your question on what's changed, right? I actually think that if if you look at the whole async philosophy, it's been that the need for organizations to capture feedback is never really going to go away, right? And that was the premise with which even async started. And we strongly believe that that will only increase with time. So more and more organizations today would want to, understand what's going on with the employees, would want to look at what we can do to make things different. So while your question is specific about engagement surveys, I'm saying that it's not just about surveys, but the need to capture feedback is going to going to increase with time. Now, feedback can be captured. There are different ways that which you can capture feedback. You can do it through employee engagement surveys. You can do it through focus group discussions. You can do it through chatbots. You can do it through one-on-one conversations. But essentially, the need to listen. Now, specifically with respect to, and then if you go back and say, okay, you know what, between engagement surveys and feedback, what's really happened? Historically, organizations would look at conducting these surveys maybe like once in a year, capture all that feedback, look at what they need to do, and so on and so forth. Today, what's happened is that organizations are looking at trying to get this feedback on a more real time basis and on a more frequent basis. So instead of waiting for the whole year, companies are now looking at can we do more frequent listening? So can we do pulse surveys, chatbots? So essentially, that's what changed in the overall engagement survey feedback landscape. The need to look at data more closely, the need to look at more data more quicker, and that's the big difference that's coming in today. Having said that, right, I think the like when I talk to clients about engagement surveys, I always feel that it's important for organizations to be able to actually cross their hearts and say that, hey, listen, I'm going to work on the feedback. So there's no point asking for feedback or there's no point conducting engagement surveys if you do not have the wherewithal to be able to do something with the feedback. So if you look at the whole engagement life cycle, if I can call it, one is to capture the feedback. You have to listen, you have to capture. There's no two ways about it, and all of us agree, right? So you need to understand what employees are going through. Once you capture the feedback, you have to work on that feedback. Otherwise, you lose trust, employees lose trust, you lose credibility. When you do a subsequent survey, people are not necessarily motivated to participate. So, one is to capture feedback, but two is to build an action around the feedback to say, hey, listen, this is what we are going to do with the feedback that we've got to build an action. And third, probably the most important part, is to validate the implementation of these actions. Now, in my opinion, my experience, that's where the failure happens. Most organizations have a feedback mechanism. Most organizations will do something about putting an action plan together, but a lot of them fail when they don't audit how effectively this action plan is being implemented. And I think that's what needs to, while the frequency of feedback has changed and while people are looking at feedback more frequently nowadays, I think there's still a long way to go for organizations to be able to say, hey, listen, I will implement an action plan, but I'll also ensure that I go back and validate how effectively these are being implemented. Is there a failure across the organization? Is there a failure at within particular parts of the business? But that's probably the most important part of engagement surveys and feedback capturing mechanism, the need to validate how effectively action plans are being implemented. So, while I mean, new hire engagement is, has been important, will always be important, and uh, many organizations, and there's enormous data to support that. If you take care of an employee within for the first 100 days, 200 days, generally they tend to stick on for a longer period of time. And that is why this whole emphasis on new hire experience, early attrition, a lot of organizations looking at what can we do differently to ensure that people are being taken care of during this period. Now, with this whole COVID and with the hybrid working model, the traditional methods of engaging with employees has definitely changed. Now, in my whole experience, one of my favorite examples, one of my favorite ideas around this around how to take care of new hires was this organization that I used to work with, who gave different color lanyards to the employees. So they had the new hires would have, while the whole organization would, let's say, have a black one, the new hires would have an orange one. So from a distance, you look at somebody and you know this person is a new hire, and the entire organization, the culture was that if you see a new hire, you walk up to him and say, "Listen, I hope everything going well. Do you need some help?" And so on and so forth. So it was designed in such a way that you spot a new hire, and then therefore you can go and connect with the person to ensure that they are being taken care of. Now with hybrid and people kind of working from home and not necessarily interacting as much as they used to do in yesteryears, the need to depend on technology has become a lot more. Most organizations today are investing in tools which will allow them to connect with new hires a lot more often, to allow new hires to proactively reach out to employees. The big difference that I've seen with new hires versus people who are tenured employees is that for most of them, it takes a little time for them to navigate through the organization, and that's where the struggle is. So, if a new hire is going through a particular challenge, if a new hire is saying, I'm unhappy because my reimbursements have not come, I'm unhappy because, I've not had a conversation with manager yet, they don't really raise an issue. They don't really, you know, take it up with your leaders. They tend to keep it within themselves because they don't want to create a noise around it, which is why the need for organizations to now once they complete 3 months, generally they know how to navigate the system. They can probably walk around, they know who to speak to, they know somebody in the admin, my car will not pick me up, they can go to transportation. Once they cross 3 months, it's fine. But within the 3 month period, they're a little more, skeptical, they're a little more unsure. And therefore you have to create a mechanism where people are walking up to new hires and spending time with them. So the need to proactively reach out to new hires and speak with them is has been important, but with this whole hybrid model, it has become a lot more relevant. You have to proactively ensure you're having conversations with employees about how their experience has been, and the use of technology and tools that are available in the market assist organizations in this on the way in a big way, right? But that is what is important today when you look at how do you engage with new hires. I mean, obviously my pet topic. Ace Engage has been an organization that is conducting exit interviews for the last 15 years. We started Ace Engage in 2007. Um, when we started, the journey, and when I went to the market and told companies that, hey, listen, we help you understand why employees are leaving. The biggest, I mean, what normally people would say is that, hey, listen, but this is, a core HR activity. And I would always maintain that core HR is what you do with the feedback that we capture and provide to you. Core HR is not necessarily capturing the feedback alone. Um, Thankfully, that's changed. Today, a lot of organizations understand that there is a need to outsource exit interviews, and there's a need to, understand what the real reasons are. So that thankfully has changed. So today, a lot of companies uh, do not, and I mean, I was looking at the stat the other day, and I think it's interesting that having said that, while that change is being seen, we get a lot more incoming calls from organizations saying, "I want to conduct exit interviews," and all of that. I still find that, I mean, I was reading the stat the other day saying that there's approximately only 1% of companies globally who outsource their exit interviews. So that is the opportunity size we're talking about. Um, so going back to why should companies outsource agency, right? So one is to understand what the real reasons are. Uh, Two is that so we actually when we classify reasons for leaving, we classify this as controllable and uncontrollable factors, right? And if I mean for all those clients out there watching this who've seen my report, you'll understand what I'm saying. But we look at when you look at why are employees leaving, there are obviously factors that organizations can control and there are factors that organizations cannot control. Um, what we see is that when you look at internal reasons for leaving, right? Why are employees leaving? If you look at an internal attrition report from all the, I mean, we currently work with 200 companies, but from all the companies that we look at, the percentage of controllable factors that get captured internally would vary between 2 to 5%. which means that when, as a leader in the organization, when I look at my attrition report, it appears that only 2% or 5% of them are leaving because of factors that I can control. Now, when I look at a stat like that, I I tend to say, hey, listen, why am I going to break my head about this? Because anyway, people are leaving for factors that I cannot control. So why even waste energy? What we have seen across all the organizations that we work with is that the average percentage would vary in the range of some 57 to 63, 64%, which is approximately 60% of them are leaving because of controllable factors. And that is the huge value that we bring to the table by, having these interviews outsourced and by having them done by a third party. Now, if you go to the leadership team and tell them that, guys, you know what, 60% of your team is leaving due to controllable factors, that's when people will, you know, sit back and take notice, because obviously that is a startling number. To know that 60% of the population leave because of the factor that I can actually control is is scary. And which is why, I think a lot of companies today, because they've understood the merits of having this done by a third party, understood the merits of getting real granular, insightful data on why employees leaving, is very critical towards your overall, employee engagement initiatives. And that's why increasingly we find more and more organizations open to the idea of conducting exit interviews. It has been a 15-year journey, but I'm glad that we're heading in the right direction. I mean, yeah, so going back, Ashna and I started Acing in 2007. Um, I mean, it's been 15 years. I wouldn't say that it doesn't feel like 15 years. There's definitely been ups and downs. There were times that, we obviously went through hard times. We are dependent on what the market is, and all of that. But it's obviously been a fun ride. I mean, the whole gratitude and the support that we've got from our clients has been immense. But from a personal standpoint, right? I think what I liked about this whole journey is that all this, while we started off as an exit interview company, so we went to the market saying, hey, listen, we'll help you answer why employees leave. As we started talking to the employees, we then realized that a lot of people were leaving in the first 100 days because of factors that the organization can actually control. So people were leaving because of, recruitment mismatch, people were leaving because of poor new hire experience, people were leaving because the managers are not approachable, people were leaving because I'm not able to kind of manage my way around in the first 100 days. And that's the feedback that we got from the exit. But when we got that feedback, we said, oh, you know what? Why don't we go to the market and say, hey, listen, let's kind of, work with the new hires, because obviously new hires are leaving in the first 100 days because of factors that you should be able to control. And then we brought in our new hire engagement model where we actually talk to people in the first 100 days, capture the feedback, and provide that feedback back to the organization. And while exit, we talk about why people are leaving. In the new hire engagement, we actually provide the organization with a clear sense of which employees are. We do a RAG analysis, like so we categorize all the employees as red, amber, green, and we go back and tell employees saying who's likely to quit and who's not likely to quit. So now HR can focus on and prioritize their work with the people who we believe are at a high risk of leaving. So we started doing new hire engagement, went to the market, people were excited. I think the whole ability to preempt attrition was something that people appreciated, because we were actually categorizing employees and saying that, talk to these people because they are not necessarily engaged at this point. As we were talking to new hire engagement, we got a lot of feedback saying, hey, listen, the whole reason I'm a little upset today is because, I was promised something at the time of recruitment, but today is something completely different. And we got a lot of feedback about recruitment mismatch. And then we said, oh, listen, you know what, why don't we do something about this? And then and actually it's interesting because, I was working with Accenture those days. We were doing exits and new hire engagement. And Accenture actually came and told me that, hey, listen, you know what? We have a problem where people are taking offer letters and not joining. Can you do something about this? I was obviously not necessarily, inclined. I was a little kind of apprehensive. Thankfully, the people on the other end, like always, were very supportive and said, Krish, you know what? You're talking to our exit employees, you're talking to our new hires, just talk to my candidates and find out why they declined. So we did that activity as a one-time study, and then we realized that the quality of feedback that we got around why people were declining was very insightful. While a lot of people think that people decline because of money, that is not entirely true, right? There is a lot of people today decline because of poor experience, mismatch, social media impact, poor turnaround time. So there's a lot of stuff that actually organizations can control towards improving the overall joining ratio and the whole candidate experience. So we did that study, went back to Accenture. Accenture was obviously very kicked about it because they got enough and more actionable insights to work on to improve their whole recruitment process. And then we started selling that service. Thankfully, it was not an idea that was conceived by us, but we started selling and we got a lot of traction in the market. And then, sometime back, we said, why don't we extend this whole solution and say, because while the Reneg analysis was insightful to let companies know why people are declining, it's not really impacting candidate experience. It's not really improving candidate experience. And that's when we launched our candidate engagement program, which is designed to ensure that candidates have an absolutely wonderful experience. So if you look at the journey, so it started off with exits. From exit feedback, we got to understand that new hires were unhappy. From new hires, and we built a new hiring engagement program. From new hires, we got to understand that recruitment experience needs to improve, and that's when we launched our candidate engagement program. And today, we've positioned ourselves as an organization that provides companies with very insightful feedback. Going back to what I earlier said, a lot of work. Our tagline is putting the human back in HR because we believe in a very personalized kind of a touch feel kind of a solution. Um, right. Today we position ourselves as a feedback capture company who basically goes to the market with to help organizations with very insightful data about what's going on. And yeah, it's been wonderful, and a lot of companies come to us. I'd like to believe that a lot of companies come to us not when they want to get a general sense of what's going on, but when they want real, insightful, actionable data. That's when they come to us because our method has been very successful in providing organizations with that. While we also do, organizational engagement surveys and all of that, the crux of a service has been telephonic interviews, behavioral psychologists, insightful, granular level understanding of what the issues are, because that's when organizations are able to, provide and build actions around, the challenges that are coming up. I strongly believe in our tagline, which is better feedback, better decisions. We believe that for an organization to be able to take the right kind of decisions, they need to have adequate feedback. Acing supports in this towards this, right? So we will help you achieve the right kind of, we'll help you with the right kind of feedback so that you are able to take the right kind of decisions, and that's what's been happening so far. Yeah, so it's been a fun ride, and obviously a lot more interesting things coming up. We're building a chatbot as we speak, so there is some stuff that's going on. Yeah, and, hopefully it's going to continue like this for some more time. I mean, there are challenges. People are talking about recession and all of that. But going back to what I said earlier, the need to, take care of employees and the need to understand what employees are going through, hopefully is never going to go away. And therefore, we should always be relevant. Right. So, I mean, I don't know if it's something that has not been told before. I believe that, I mean, HR obviously, has a lot on its plate. I think during COVID, what happened was HR came into the forefront. I mean, there's been, over the last, if you look at the last 15 years, there was a point when HR was not part of the boardroom. HR is now part of the boardroom. So that's changing, and I like that. I like the change that's going on within the HR fraternity itself. But I think three things, right? One is that you have to listen as HR people, as HR, HR folks. We have to listen to our employees, right? We have to listen, continuously listen. And I think that's the big challenge today. We don't really listen enough. So one is to listen. Once you listen, you have to act on it, right? Which means you heard this feedback. Now you need to do something about it, right? So one is to listen, two is to act. The third is to own it. I think today what happens is while I mean, some people listen, don't act and own. Some people listen, act and don't own. But we have to display high levels of ownership uh, to the feedback that we're receiving. So you listen, you act, and you own. And I think that's what my message would be, to the whole HR fraternity, because I think that's how you'll solve people issues.